Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just witnessed is peak cinema. Let's face it, boys, Tekken has definitely gone off the deep end in the past decade. From the Naruto rejects, promise of free DLC only to then charge me for my waifu Armor King, and terrible character balancing.
Oh, I see you feeling yourself!
It pains me to see Tekken merely be presented as a shell of its former self by developer Bandai Namco. While watching the developer panel for Tekken 8 at the Tekken World Tour 2022 North America Regional Finals, that's a mouthful, we all learnt a lot more about Tekken 8, including that it's going to be much more aggressive than Tekken 7, which is exactly what we need more of in Tekken.
Eating the lows and then wow. Again, I knew he was gonna do it. Man, AK had no! This is after he lost, yeah.
After watching the Tekken subreddit have a meltdown over Tekken 8 in between bursts of posting NSFW artwork of underage characters, I realized that a lot of fighting games nowadays are just becoming easier and easier to play, with less complex execution requirements and less moves overall. And this can either work well for the game's player base by attracting people from all walks of life.
And what is that, bro?
Or, you could be a fighting game who only attracts people who don't have stable father figures. I think that Tekken's mix of simple inputs for most moves with high execution for advanced techniques like moving backwards makes for an extremely fun yet demanding battle system. Tekken 7 isn't a bad game by any means, but I wanted to return to the original King of Iron Fist tournament. Before Tekken went anime. Before Tekken had combos the length of the Nile River. Before Tekken didn't have implied sexual assault.
I always get what I want.
Seriously, what the hell was this cutscene? And before Tekken went multi-platform. It's time to return to what made the series so great in the first place, 1994's Tekken. Now that the intro is out of the way, let's find out how beautiful and definitely not nightmare-inducing character designs like this were brought to life. I won't be going too in-depth about the game's development, because I doubt the 5 people who watch this video will care, but I'll go over it as quickly as I can so as to not bore you. Ready? Let's go. In 1993, Namco put out a game called Ridge Racer. This was a 3D racing game that included texture mapping, and after release, Namco wanted to experiment with this newfangled technology for human character models, so they hired developers from Sega who worked on Virtua Fighter, including game director Seiji Ishii. Then, they made an arcade board that was like the PlayStation 1, and then after, in 1993, this happened.
わしを倒せるとでも思っておるのか？
すべてを終わらせる。
これですっきりしたわい。忌々しいデビルの血よ。
時間の無駄だ。これが現実だ。無様だな。待っていろ。
若造が久しぶりに血がたぎるわ。
恐怖を教えてやろう。
これですっきりしたわい。忌々しいデビルの血よ。Round 1 Fight! ハリアチェンソーハリアケッよドリホッいれカモンチハラ足
With that over and done with, now you're aware of the true story of how Tekken 1 came to be. You're welcome. Tekken 1 introduced lots of fan-favorite characters to the series, including but not limited to Kazuya, Heihachi, Nina, King, Lee, Armor King, Anna, Ganryu, Jack, and the most memorable character of them all, Michelle. You don't have access to most characters at the start, so you have to play through arcade mode with a character who is somehow relevant to them in the lore. So for example, if you beat the game with King, you unlock Armor King, and if you beat it with Nina, you unlock Anna. This takes me back to when you actually needed to play the game for a certain amount of time and be skilled enough to beat it to unlock cool stuff, instead of just paying for it like we have to do nowadays. Kids these days with their 7,000 Goku variants. Back in my day, we had 2 kings, and gosh darn it, we were happy. It's cool to see the origin of many fan-favorite characters and moves in Tekken 1. Kazuya has his forward 4-3, King has his complete throw game, and Paul has his iconic Death Fist, just to name a few. As for me, I've always been a big fan of my man Armor King. Sure, you can have Jin, Kazuya, Nina, or whoever else you want to make out with, but for me, forever and always, it's Armor King. Alright boys, now it's time to get into the real meat and potatoes of this proverbial discount buffet exclusively found at a Detroit strip club, i.e. the gameplay. Just like the other games, Tekken 1 has 4 attack buttons. You have 2 punch buttons for your character's arms, and 2 kick buttons for the legs. Simple. Due to this being the very first game in the series, the gameplay is kind of clunky and unresponsive, and I experienced lots of frustration trying to do basic things like getting off the ground after I was knocked over. I'm willing to look past this lack of polish due to the game's age, so don't worry. I'm not the type of person who makes YouTube videos critiquing multiple decade-old games for 3 hours as if anyone cares. The groundwork was there for something much greater, which Namco thankfully capitalized on in the future games, but for Tekken 1, the gameplay is rough by today's standards. If you go back and try this game again for whatever reason, prepare to fight against an input reading AI that'll kill you any chance it gets in your quest to unlock all the characters. Wait. Oh. Dude, I just realized I'm such an idiot. I forgot to go over the game's story. It's the most important part of a fighting game. Don't worry, I'll keep it brief. I wouldn't want you to be unaware of this game's Shakespearean narrative. What the... What is that? Oh, I just punched Kazuya into the brick wall. What is this game? When Kazuya Mishima is but a wee 5-year-old, his meanie father Heihachi catches him watching Dream past his bedtime. And as a standard punishment, he beats him up and throws him off a cliff to test his strength. Kazuya then makes a deal with the devil once he hits the ground to survive, granting him the devil gene. Heihachi then adopts an orphan called Li Chaolan from China, who acts as Kazuya's rival. And as an adult, Kazuya wants nothing more than to enact his revenge and kill Heihachi. 21 years after the previous events, Heihachi announces the King of Iron Fist martial arts tournament, aimed directly at Kazuya to see if he's grown in power. Eventually, Kazuya makes it to the finals and he beats Heihachi, winning the tournament and killing him in what is possibly the greatest piece of cinematography and animation I have ever witnessed in my life. Moving on, Tekken is regarded as a top-tier fighting game now, alongside games like Rise of the Robots, Street Fighter the movie the game, and Guilty Gear Strive. But back in the day of Tekken 1, it wasn't always like this. Tekken would have had to impress critics and fighting game fans alike to make a splash in the pool. So how did it do? Pretty darn well is the answer. According to this review chart, I definitely did not steal from Wikipedia. It's clear to see that Tekken received near perfect review scores, aside from stupid IGN who never learnt a damn thing in the future. When the game was released on the PS1, it became the first game on that console to sell over 1 million copies. That's insane. According to this Japanese sales chart from 1995, we can see that game number 4, Tekken, sold 942,000 copies that year. For purely hypothetical reasons, I'm going to make a guess and say that a new game in Japan back then would have cost around 5,500 yen. So you times those two numbers, and when you get the answer, that means that Bandai Namco would have been swimming in money, Scrooge McDuck style. Also in 1995 was the release of the game's sequel, Tekken 2. Featuring better graphics, gameplay, audio, and more characters, it's safe to say that the series definitely evolved with Tekken 2, and I'm sure I'll get around to it one day. So what have we learned today other than the fact that I need to fix my sleep schedule? Not much. This was meant to be a combination of a retrospective video and a shitpost, so for your sake, I hope that I accomplish this with my dreadful video editing skills. I know this is different to my normal videos as it contains more haha funny fun time moments, but I wanted to try something new. So thanks for watching boys, and I'll see you in the next one.